Today we're going to look at management styles and the effect that has on performance. And I'm going to start off by asking a question. Are you a superhero or a pilot? To explore these two issues in more detail and explain them is Stephen Carver. Now let's start off with pilot. I expect most managers think of themselves as cool, calm pilots, looking at all the instruments, taking in all the data, keeping a cool head. Is that the way you see it?
No, in my experience, most managers unfortunately aren't. They like to wear the hat, they like to call themselves a pilot, preferably a captain, of course. But no, actually, most of them are crisis managers because they enjoy it.
So that's the superhero.
It is indeed. Running around with the red cape, in this case a couple of blackberries, running for taxis, running off to Heathrow, that's what they enjoy. It's the adrenaline buzz.
But isn't there a place for the superhero?
There is, but superheroes should come after the pilot, not the superhero before the pilot. Let me explain. The last time you flew, you got into a thin metal tube. It has no crash resistance. They filled it up full of fuel. They took it out onto the runway. They accelerated you up to takeoff speed. This lunatic at the front turned you into a flying bomb, took you up to 10,000 metres, 750 miles an hour. What was his name? Did you say thank you? Answer to, no, I didn't know his name, and no, I didn't say thank you. He was only doing his job. But he made something really quite dangerous and exciting, really quite boring, because he planned. Good managers plan before they get themselves up to 10,000 feet. Bad managers just take off and then think, where are we going? How am I going to get down? And then they turn into so-called superheroes.
So how come our heart rules our head then, and we end up as being more like superheroes than pilots?
I think Sir John Harvey Jones summed it up years ago, which was, people don't like to plan. Planning is unnatural. It's far more fun just to do. And the nice thing about just doing, in other words, action, Superman, is that failure comes as a complete surprise and, if I may say so, also gives you the opportunity to be even more of a superhero. Whereas if you have planned, the failure might be preceded by, shall we say, despair and worry. I call it planning.
So let's look at this issue of planning. How do you actually get to be the good planned manager, the pilot, rather than stick in a much preferred mode, superhero?
Okay, the first thing you have to do is get control of your time. It sounds really quite inane, but most managers I come across have lost control of their time agenda. And as they say, the 1% kills you. It's rather like drowning. The water can come up this far and it worries you, but it's not going to kill you. It's that last 1% that kills you. If you can reduce, by getting good time management techniques into your life, your workload by 5%, then it gives you time to stop panicking and actually start to think about the future as opposed to the next few seconds.
So that's great prescriptions, but I would say most managers would say to you, you don't live in the real world. I get so much thrown at me, I can't possibly operate with that kind of head on my shoulders.
Yeah, it's a bit like a pilot. It's funny because if you go into a modern airplane, they've taken out most of the dials and switches that you used to see because they realised that actually it just heightened the tension in the cockpit, and the pilot spent far too much time looking at the dials as opposed to thinking about flying. So now they have something called a glass cockpit, where if you want to find out what the oil temperature is, you can find out, but it doesn't automatically tell you unless there's something wrong. So a lot of this management by exception, and so people are actually getting less information in the cockpit, but the right information at the right time when they need it. That's a pilot behaviour.
So is pilot behaviour encouraged by setting up the right systems, or is it more an attitude of mind?
I'd say both. The attitude of mind means that you will then set up the right systems against incredible opposition, because most superheroes enjoy being superheroes. They get recognised and they like that. And so if someone starts to try and build some structure in the organisation, better planning, then they fight it tooth and nail.
But surely nobody will admit that in
no,
the
they
real world,
wouldn't.
will they?
And so this is very much a culture change. And I think in many ways, because we've had the crisis in the world for the last 2 years, people have now grown tired of crisis. They've seen the results of crisis. And of course, the crisis that got us into the crisis in the first place was a whole bunch of super heroes, well, shall we say bankers, are getting us into this mess and now having even more fun trying to get us out. Perhaps we shouldn't have been in the mess in the first place if we'd had better planning and people about thinking about how we were flying and where we were going.
A good message. Thank you very much, Stephen.
My pleasure.